Welcome to another episode of Better Business, Better Life. Today I am joined by a fellow British person, Garry Green, who is the MD and founder of Quanton, which is a business that specialises in digitisation, AI and robotic process automation. Did I get that right, Garry?
Yeah, thanks, Debra.
Excellent. Well, great to have you here. Would love to hear a little about your story. So you are originally not from New Zealand, but you moved here about 15 years ago. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how you got to be where you are now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I came to New Zealand 15 years ago and I had no intention of setting up my own business, but it just circumstances kind of an opportunity arose and you thought, why not? And it's probably about just over 8 years ago, I came across a particular technology that was not being used in New Zealand. And I thought, must be a good reason for that. And I knew someone that was actually working as chief marketing officer for one of the major companies that did this technology, a UK-based company, but they're doing really well in the States and Europe. And I reached out to him and just saw that technology could really help with transformations in New Zealand and for us everywhere I'd worked before. So I reached out to him and they had no intention of going to this part of the world, but said, hey, Garry, I know you, I'll back you. Do you want to become a partner on this technology, which was Blue Prism robotic process automation? And so approached a number of the businesses I'd worked with before and basically, cut a long story short, one of the major banks I'd worked at basically was after this technology to see what it could do globally. And we're the only people in the market doing this. So we landed one of the major banks as our launch customer, which was fantastic. And we built the business out from there. And we landed other banks, insurance companies in its technology, health sector, clients, logistics, energy, retail. But also that this was a kind of starting point of where people looking at technology around automation could help their businesses become more productive and save cost, free people up from mundane activities, but also kind of de-risk their businesses. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of evolved as the technologies evolved and democratized. Initially, it was only in the realms of the big enterprise players, and now the technology is available for large, medium and small businesses. And we've definitely seen probably the biggest uptake in growth in automation and AI is probably around the mid-tiers because they can just adapt and change quicker than their bigger competitors.
Yeah. We were chatting before the podcast, you explained the whole Moore's Law thing, how obviously as things get more popular and technology moves forward, it becomes more readily available to everybody. Is that right?
Yeah. And so, Moore's Law is a kind of exponential series that basically one of the founders of Intel, I forgot his first name, but basically Professor Moore. Yeah. He basically looked at that basically he could basically double the chip capacity every 18 months of their microchips they're producing. But this also meant then that effectively the cost was halving as well.
Right.
So, and it's basically an exponential series. So basically every 18 months it goes from 4 chips to 8 to 16 to 32. And it's a kind of progressive curve that goes up. And people often kind of, when you've got disruptive technology, it follows an exponential path. It flies very much under the radar for many years and then suddenly pops up. So like ChatGPT, people, where did that come from? But it's been happening for years.
Yes, it's been sort of building very slowly and then all of a sudden
a hockey stick kick up. But what that means is that then it's seen as disruptive, but it's not necessarily the technology that's disruptive. It's the business model that you can now, it empowers you to use that technology to do on multiple technologies. And as we chatted before, I said that, there's a number of technologies, there's 20 plus technologies that are exponential out there, from artificial intelligence to robotics to self-driving cars to in medicine.
Didn't you mention flying cars? That's one thing. I'm sure I heard you mention flying cars.
Oh, yeah, flying cars, they're basically drones.
Yeah.
You look how drones have progressed
and
the capability and everything else. And actually, you'll probably get adoption of flying cars ahead of self-driving cars because they're operating in an area of space where it's not congested or crowded, and it's easier to kind of deconflict them than in a crowded environment where you've got people, a complex environment like driving, which is much more challenging.
Yep.
So it's interesting that these technologies can also go into kind of fill gaps as well that you couldn't have done by other means or ways before.
Yeah.
But what that means also with exponential technologies is that it requires a new way of thinking because, again, you can do things differently, but things move faster. It's that kind of move from scarcity to abundance. So it's like with digitization, you suddenly can go from an analog world where you may have a newspaper and now you've got it digitally, or you've got photographs, now you've got them digitally.
Yep.
And you might have only had a few before, to now you can take unlimited pictures. And it's that thing of go that once you digitize, the incremental cost of doing something is virtually zero.
Yes.
So the business model that was built out before was around managing scarcity. The future business model is now about managing abundance. But that also means then that you've got to change your business model. But equally as well, the skills that you need for managing abundance and that digital world are completely different to scarcity skills. So you move to much more empowerment, having highly capable people that are empowered to do stuff, not in a command control kind of regime. And they also self-organize and do that. So you're basically, a lot of the kind of skills that you need as a manager also shift and change, and also as a leader. Equally, you've got to keep on top of this as well. And you can't rely on your skills from 10 years ago or 20 years ago, because they're not necessarily relevant, all of them relevant to what's required in the future.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of also for takeaways. You've got to constantly evolve as well as a person and learn and understand what's going on in the environment. But how can you use that, or how can you upskill yourself or your team around that? Not just on the technology, but ways of leveraging that technology.
Yeah, it is a completely different way of thinking. If you think about the whole abundance versus scarcity, I mean, we were talking about photography earlier. In the old days, you would take that perfect picture, and you make really sure you didn't waste any money by taking more than one image, because you had to pay to have them processed. Whereas now we have thousands of similar images, and how on earth do you manage that? Yeah. And that's the same in business, right?
Yeah, and it's that thing of go that. You've got access to so much data and information now, and you don't know where it is and the quality of it. Yeah. And that's also one of the problems with AI, that you want to train it, but your data's not great. It's not in one area. It's got potential bias because it was collected in certain ways, or certain data sets that you looked at.
They're seeing that with the image generation stuff, aren't there? There's a lot of bias going on in the AI image generation. You mentioned that Westpac said earlier on this year that if you're not using AI, you'll be out of business pretty soon. Now, we don't wish to scare people, but it is going to be part of every business really in the future, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the thing is that in evolving as a business, you've got to constantly move forward, because if you're not growing, you're dying effectively, because, you've got inflation to deal with. You've got obviously demands in what the market's doing and, market forces. But effectively, your competitors are using AI to get ahead, and they're using it for a point of difference of how they can make themselves more competitive, how they can make themselves more productive, how they can get better insights into their customers, how they can actually move quicker to evolve to those customer needs. Equally, staff, aren't prepared to put up with mundane activity. Staff are a premium and your best assets. How do you attract talent and give them interesting work? So you've got to change the ways of what you're doing, leverage these tools. And as I said before, it's not the technology that's disruptive, it's your business model that can be disruptive, and how you leverage that technology in your business. And it's again how you can use your staff in the most productive way, how you can increase the productivity of your business, how you can improve your differentiation, and how you can move faster. And again, from some of my background in the past, we had a thing called the OODA loop, which was in the military, you use it as a observe, orientate, decide, and act. And the idea, and it's the same in business, you need to observe, orientate, decide, act. And the idea is that you can do it faster and better than your competitor. So that means that you've got to be able to see what's going on. You need to be able to know what's going on in the market. You need to be able to make informed decisions, and then you need to be able to act. But you need to do that in a kind of seamless way and rapidly. Yep. And that's why I say medium-sized businesses are really well positioned, because they can do all of that quicker.
They haven't got the legacy systems. They haven't got all that, that previous behaviour as well, I suppose.
They're a lot flatter, where a lot of big enterprises have got many layers and legacy ways of doing stuff. Yep. And they're also set up for an optimal way of operating that's worked really well to get them to where they are. But equally, is that necessarily the best business model for them going forward when you've got to move quicker? Yep. Because, we've got a range of clients from enterprise down to mediums and smalls, and they all work at different paces and decision cycles and so on. I mean, we cater for all of them, but you've got to be aware when you're doing that. And if you're in a relatively slow market, that's probably not a problem. But if you're in a fast-moving, dynamic market, you need to be able to kind of increase that pace and, I say, use data and AI to augment those decisions.
Okay, so when businesses come to you, what are usually the pain points that they're experiencing when they come to you?
That's a good question. Various, because it's often, we get people that come, like say, you say, oh, I need to be using AI. Yeah. and go, well, why? Because everyone else is using it. It's a buzzword. It's what's happening.
Yes.
And you're almost in that case, it's someone looking for a silver bullet. And you go, there are no silver bullets. Is it to deal with something else? And we'd normally ask a few questions, you know, where you are, where you want to be, why do you want to get there, what are the drivers, and then what are the pain points? And it might be that they've got to a certain level of growth and they can't go any further because their operating model, the maturity of the operating model they're using, the maturity of the processes, the skill sets they've got, the market they're operating in, or something, or fragmented data, or a whole host of things. They don't have a unified view of the customer, or they've got inconsistent view of the customer, or there's inconsistency of the processes running, which result in a variable customer experience and so on. So people come, and it's more of a symptom that we get rather than the underlying cause. So we'll very much then dig into what the underlying causes are. Yep. And we often find that people want AI, but then you're going, okay, have they got a vision of the future or a strategy? Yeah, great. If they haven't, let's get that in place, because then you know where your North Star is and what you're aiming for. Have they got an operating model? Yeah, great. Is it being used consistently? Yes, no. If it's not, why not? How do you ensure consistency of operation? Because if you want to automate something or use an AI, you need a consistent process. And then what's the data you've got that you're looking at around this? Is your data good? Are you collecting good information of your customers? Or if it's all handwritten forms coming in, someone's going to type that in, or a mix of stuff.
Sounds very similar to EOS, which is the work that I do with businesses to make sure that they have that vision, that they're actually, you know, looking at the data. And I think the IDSing part of it is getting to the real root cause, because often the SEU say it's symptomatic. It's not the real cause. You've got to really explore what's really causing it. It takes me back to, when I first started working with the Ice House many years ago, it was when social media was sort of, you know, probably at the stage that ChatGPT is now. And we'd have people coming going, we need to have social media. And it's like, what kind of social media? What for? What are you trying to achieve? Who are your target audience? What do you want? You know, what's the action you want them to take? And you don't need to be on everything, and you don't need to necessarily. For some companies, actually, social media wasn't required at that stage, and as it evolved, it became obviously more prevalent. So, so the key thing is you have a problem. You then think about, okay, what is the real problem? How do we get to the root cause of that? Then what can we do to actually improve that? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like ChatGPT. People go, we should be using it. And you go, have some great tactical use cases. It's a fantastic productivity tool. There's also known limitations, because you don't want to put your company's trade secrets onto an open source that anyone can read.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's like it's knowing its strengths, but also potential risk factors, and also how is it trained.
Yes.
But again, you know, there's some fantastic use cases as well of where you can use it. You can actually get your own instance privately within your organization. You can use it around your knowledge bases of what you've got. So you can use it internally, because, you know, it's like trying to search for information. If you're linking to your kind of where your repository of all, you know, work that you've done, or knowledge bases and stuff, and you can actually use it really productively there too.
Actually, it's really interesting. A lot of my clients come in, and one of the biggest issues that we have that are usually on the long-term issues list is actually their SharePoint, or their database of knowledge in the organization, because people can't find things that they want and need.
I know.
Yeah.
And it's conventional means of searching, you know, it takes a bit of time. So suddenly now, if you can do this a bit smartly, you suddenly go, that's quite empowering. So,
Excellent. Okay. I want to talk a little bit more about your actual business as well, because obviously you started this 8 years ago, and there would have been, you and one other who started that business, and now you've got 25 staff in the business.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about this outside the podcast, where you didn't sort of really intentionally start off to create a big business. You started off with the technology, liking the technology, and next thing you know, you're growing a business, and it's difficult, isn't it, at times?
And I guess it's that thing of you've got an idea and you see a gap in the market, and you go, why isn't anyone doing that? There must be a reason. And then you go, people aren't aware of something. So you test it with a few people. Oh, maybe there is a market. Yeah. You start, and that's the thing when you start on your own. We initially partnered with an advisory company that I'd known for many years. And, you know, we started that journey together, and we brought in a few people that were kind of shared our vision, and we're very much in a startup phase. But as you grow, you then get into the kind of the next phase of how you have to systemize in that. And some of the people you're in the startup phase just love pushing around with the technology, aren't into documentation or stuff. But for you to scale and grow, you've got to systemize what you do, have consistency. Equally, when you start, you're doing everything, then you can afford to get a salesperson or a delivery person and start to offload. on that to get, bookkeeper and so on. So yeah, you kind of grow, you make mistakes, you make some good hiring decisions, you make some not so good ones.
We've all been there, I think. Yeah, absolutely. And how did you, because you're right, a startup has a very, very different mindset to an established business, and there was definitely different skills required. How do you make sure that you get the right people now? Because I'm assuming you're still growing and still looking at and engaging with people. What do you do to get the right people on board?
We've gone from, when we started, no one's doing what we did, so we had to train people from scratch. So I guess, unwittingly, with my background, ex-military, you always look at people's potential and attitude and for doing stuff. And so we've kind of carried that on as well, that the team we've got is really around attitude and values. Yep. So we recruit to the values we've got around the company, about backing each other up, own the quest for the new, celebrate awesome, and, and so on. So we very much test people against that for fit. It's also, people that are motivated, capable, that want to learn, have got a hunger for that. And so, because you can train anyone, but you can't train attitude.
Yes.
You've got the right attitude to begin with. So we're very much getting the right people. And as I said before, that we don't have any quotas around, gender, race, etc., so on. But, we're about 50% female and at all levels within the business. And then also we're pretty diverse culturally as well.
Yes.
And this is just that we've picked people who are the right attitude and want to join us and want to do this. And we've got a great team you get a richness from that diversity as well.
I agree. So, I've been advocating for diversity since I first came to New Zealand, I think, because I recognise that in a lot of, particularly boards, a lot of boards were all white, male, over 60, and even from the same kind of background, they were all lawyers or engineers or accountants. And it's like, come on, guys, how are we going to get the diversity of thought if we haven't got diversity in our own groups? Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, that's
good.
That
richness of different ways of doing and different ways of thinking as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, okay. So in terms of just thinking around, let's just say somebody's sitting here kind of going, yes, we need to use AI. There is definitely merit in it taking away the boring stuff, isn't it? There's a lot of merit in actually using this technology and even robotics to take away the mundane stuff, to free up people to do the more value add stuff. Where do you think, this is a completely random question, but where do you think this is taking us in the future in terms of what about the people who are doing the mundane jobs now? Where do they end up going from there?
It's a good question, because in the AI summit that was a few weeks ago in the UK, you had British Prime Minister very much giving a rosy view of AI as our saviour, and it'll create more opportunities and remove them. Then you got Elon Musk going, no, AI is going to take every job. There'll be no jobs in the future.
Yep.
And I think you've got to be realistic.
And blow us all up.
I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle, that if you look at, if you go back to the first industrial revolution, you had the, advent of, like you say, using steam power to have machines then that are in factories and you could produce stuff, and the spinning jenny and so on. It basically moved people from the land to the cities and created new jobs that never existed before, but there were more jobs created than were taken away.
True.
And again, you also then put technology back into farms to mechanize what was being done there, because again, a person with a horse and a plough could only do so much. Yes. And then you eventually get tractors there and
combine harvesters and
and so it's added there. So technology has always been disruptive. With the right business model has been disruptive. It's changed what the work is and what's valued.
Yeah, it hasn't removed the jobs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's moved very much that there was a big value with physical labour to there's a big shift to knowledge-based labour. And then what's it going to be in the future? Probably around more what humans do best around empathy and creativity, authenticity. So I think there's a big shift there. You don't want to compete with an automation or an AI that can do stuff better than you, because you're never going to win.
Yep.
Around that. But there is stuff that, if you look at the structure of some organisations, the tendency in the past has been, we've got a problem, we won't fix it, we'll just throw people at it to deal with it. And so you've got a lot of areas that we certainly go in and look at and go, we look at the end-to-end process flow, what's going on there, and go, well, and we apply lean techniques of where's the inefficiency there, what's wastage, what's value add.
Yep.
And again, you focus on what the value add is and remove what the waste is. And so it's a redistribution of the work within and the priority and the value. And we call, this process looking at end-to-end value streams. Where's the value in what you're doing and being done? So it's a similar thing then that you apply technologies like AI as where's the best value that's going to deliver, where's the best value people are going to deliver in a kind of process. And again, it's also going that it's at what levels in an organization, where in the past it's very been at the bottom that they've automated low value jobs and then tried to move people into higher value. It's more in the middle now, where it's knowledge workers that you're automating work, but then it's going to create other opportunities of stuff that was too expensive to do before is now actually much more affordable. So it creates new opportunities.
Yeah, okay.
And so on. So it's like digitization of photography. If you look at that people say the digital camera killed Kodak because their business model was around people taking photographs, taking in a film cartridge and getting it developed. And it's around the chemical process and giving you prints. It wasn't the digital camera that killed Kodak. They developed some of the best digital technology there is. But it's actually social media that killed them, because basically people were taking photographs and, you can share the holiday photos, but all of a sudden you do it digitally and share it instantly. And so it creates this whole thing of actually the whole thing was about sharing your memories or sharing what you're doing. Creates new things. Then you've now got a whole social media influencers, etc. The ability for us to do a podcast now in the past would have been too prohibitively expensive. So it's that democratization of technology and giving it, and the masses having access to it, creates whole new opportunities. And it's like to our kids, we say, what do you want to do when you grow up? I go, I don't know, the job's not been invented yet.
And it's probably true.
And it's like with AI, we're only scratching the surface of what we can do with it, because we're thinking in old ways of working and doing of what it can do. When you get it in, it opens up new ways of how you're going to think, how you're going to operate, and then the capabilities that you want to do around that. But certainly at the base level, it's giving access to much more knowledge and information to people than they ever had before. That's how you leverage that. But it's also, say from a point of view, you could effectively use it for legal advice or drafting contracts. All of a sudden you're going, what would cost you thousands before to go cost you cents to do? So it's all of a sudden, we can all be a bit more legally protected if we wanted to be.
There are some implications around that. We actually ran a panel discussion with a whole bunch of lawyers around AI and the things you need to be aware of. But you're absolutely right. It makes those things so much easier. So what the job then starts to become is actually checking the validity of that data, or that it actually makes sense, as opposed to the mundane stuff of what the legal execs used to go through, backlogs of case studies or legal precedents, that kind of stuff. Now they can get that in a heartbeat, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it just changes the dynamic of how you can operate. And then where you put the focus, because it's like with accountancy, you spend so much time doing the bookkeeping, and then rather than on management accounting, where now you can switch the dynamic to go, I can actually give you better advice on what you should be doing, rather than trying to bring the information together. And that's, so again, if you think about things like Xero have changed the whole accounting world, this is going to change the way we do a lot of things. So in terms of your business, I'm hoping you use this stuff in your own business. So you went through a similar process. So you go through and you go, right, here's our end-to-end process. These are where the challenges are. This is what we could do. And I suppose we use a tool called Delegate and Elevate, where we actually look at going, what do I love and I'm really great at and where I add most value to the business, and the other stuff I can delegate. And that's where you could potentially delegate that stuff to another human, or to a robot, or to AI, or So a similar approach to yourself of go there, where's the real value? And again, we look at our own processes, how we engage. We've looked at the whole life cycle of how you engage customers, how you onboard them, how you understand the problems, and what's the problem set. We kind of built a methodology around that as well, because we found that some of the transformation technologies have got some good foundations, but they're not necessarily suited to the digital world and implementation. So we kind of built stuff out around that and constantly have been evolving it. And then I guess when people are going, like say, people come to you with, I've got this problem, but it's understanding, like say,
what's
is
the
it a problem?
real
Is it an
issue?
Opportunity? What's the root cause? So we apply all those. And then again, we use, we're not quite the builder's house, but we do use automation ourselves in a lot of what we do as well, and the tools. Because again, it's looking at AI in the IT space and actually using AI to code, and it can do it. It's not very good at the moment, but it was going to get better.
That's right.
And it's that thing of go then that you go the life cycle, go that okay, the third of the time for helping a client. There's a third coding, there's requirements and understanding what the user stories are, coding, testing, deploying, interacting. You know, if you can make that 30% more efficient, that's great.
Yeah, you can free up those resources. And I think it's not just about, I mean, I think everybody is obsessed with ChatGPT and they think of that as being AI, but it's a whole lot more than that. I mean, the robotic stuff is really fascinating. I work with a family business down in the South Island who have a lot of market gardens and then a retail store as well. And I mean, they're now looking at, you know, how do they improve the planting? How do they improve the sorting of the fruit and vegetables when it comes out of the ground? All that stuff is actually AI in some respects, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, like I say, it's, for example, you go to Hawke's Bay now and all the modern orchards are expelliared. So basically the trees are, rather than grow up and bush over the top, they're basically grown up on wires. So then
I've seen that,
and basically you put a robot down them now to pick, prune, spray and everything. It's more efficient.
Yes.
They're designing the orchards for basically automation and using AI.
Yeah.
And obviously those technologies will have sensors that will look, is the apple right? Is there a disease there? Do I need to spray it and stuff? So again, using AI and data and stuff, they're looking at, you know, using less pesticide because they're really targeted.
Only spraying the ones that actually need it rather than everything. Really that's amazing. Yeah, no, I was saying to you before, I mean, we cycled around the Hawke's Bay in the middle of COVID and seeing all that fruit kind of rotting on the ground was just heartbreaking. And is that what prompted some of these developments to happen a bit more quickly, or has it always been going on?
I think it's always, I don't know exactly around that, but you can just see that there's been a lot of investment in when they replant the orchards of how to do that, because at the moment they have to bring in migrant labour to do that. Yeah. And which, you know, these guys are great. And I know a person that runs a company that does that and really looks after them. And there's people are different, use from the grapes to the apples and different times of the year and the heat and stuff. But I guess it is a constant struggle to get staff for that. Yeah. And it's that kind of where you're going, actually, if you've got... if you put automation in there, you can run it 24/7 as well. Or to look after what you're doing in the orchard. You can deal with peaks in demand more easily.
I was down in Martinborough just recently. Martinborough. And I was staying on a vineyard. They had like amazingly big kind of fans and heaters that were all feeding off the data to see, you know, whether it was getting cold or warm and changing, you know, the environment. And that's basic kind of automation, isn't it? But it makes a difference.
But again, it's big data as well, because you've got the technology around the weather, what the forecasts are. You've got sensors in the ground around moisture, nutrients, etc. Then you're overlaying data onto what grows well, what doesn't, etc. pests and so on. Yeah, because it's also then that if you're doing an intervention, what interventions you need to do, and if you've got better data, can you intervene earlier and it's less chemicals or what you're doing. Or if you're organic, you're plucking something out or whatever. Right, or the composition of what you've got to put into the soil and so on. And then it's also knowing that within your land where the grapes grow best and what variety, and then what the sweetness is and acidity at the right time to pick. And then I guess it's also working with you get that data to whoever the winemaker, because it's again going, what style of wine are they going to do, and and positioning then for the market and demand, because you think the life cycle for wine's quite long.
Yes, yeah. Hey, imagine having that information so much earlier. I mean, it's just going to change the way a lot of things are done, even quite basic things probably don't even think of. Yeah, and
it's not a kind of gut feel; it's actually going on hard.
Yeah, going on hard, big data.
Data, and then also the models for predicting as well. Yeah. So let's go back to the Westpac report.
Well, we'll start to be doing just-in-time fruit picking, won't we? You know, we're going to be pick just the right amount of grapes to actually make enough wine for the orders we've got coming in for this year. Yeah.
So and it's things like that when Westpac did that report to say about you've got to be leveraging it.
Yes.
Or you look at the competitive advantage you're going to get around that because of the quality of your product that you're going to produce, your cost of producing a product's lower because you're not your wastage is lower because you only do interventions when you need them at the right time and just the right amount of stuff. So
it's amazing. Hey, I want to go back to the car thing. So you talked about flying cars are more likely to kind of, become prevalent than necessarily self-driving cars on the roads ultimately because the space is less crowded up there. Isn't it more dangerous if they crash? I've just been thinking about this the whole time because I've been thinking about flying cars.
It's like risk. With risk management, it's a case of what's the impact of that risk materializing versus the risk of it happening?
Right. Yeah.
So it's like aircraft are the most safest form.
I know. Yeah, that's true actually. Yeah.
But when they do crash,
there's a lot of people get hurt or killed. Yeah.
But then if you look, cars are probably one of the most dangerous because probability and in the volume. And I guess it's that thing of go that it's interesting because when I was doing one of my our EXO community, this global EXO of exponential change in a network, we looked at the whole flying car thing. So we were looking at going, you're suddenly going that, well, actually there's a piece of airspace that you're basically going to go that you can create effectively lanes of travel. You can self-separate. You don't have pedestrians or cyclists or other vehicles. It's only vehicles that do this. They've got to be to a certain standard that can communicate and do this. You're suddenly going then that, well, where are you going to take them off to and land them? And you're going, whether it's heliports or parks, or you create tops of building things, you're suddenly going, well, there's probably all this space all you can do this. I mean, the vehicles they've got at the moment, some of them are, 2 or 4 people. Initially, they're going to have a pilot, but it won't be long before they're
completely automated.
They're doing.
Well, I was thinking, I talked about this with my husband when we were driving somewhere that I was saying, I'm actually looking forward to the time when we do have everything if everything was completely automated and you knew you wanted to leave home to be at work by 8:20 in the morning and you could just plug that into a computer and a car or vehicle would turn up and it would take you along with the person who just happens to be 200 meters down the road and can take you along. It's actually going to improve efficiency of travel because you can travel at the maximum speed. It will know how to work out who to pick up and when to pick them up. I mean, I actually think it's going to be amazing when it happens because you won't get stuck in traffic and get really frustrated about the person who's doing, lower than the speed limit in front of you or the person who's doing faster and creating havoc as they go down the motorway. That will all be automated. Yeah.
It's interesting because there's a study done on self-driving EVs in the States, and it's basically going that if you look at vehicles at the moment, they're 95% not used. You're only using 5% of the time. So you've got an asset that's expensive to buy, that's depreciating. You're paying the maintenance. It's sitting there doing nothing. Then you've got to pay to park it to do nothing. And so on. So they were going that the utilization of a vehicle, if you have self-drive autonomous where you don't own it, you just use it when you need it.
Book it when you need it.
So you're booking it at 8:20 into town and it goes off and does other stuff. The utilization of those vehicles goes up between 60 to 80%. And it's basically going that the States, it would say that the true cost of, say, a vehicle of traveling a kilometre is $1, where if you do this
fully automated,
it's 20 cents.
Wow,
a kilometre. So it's like, the impact on the economy is like trillions of dollars released of, people about $5,000 a year better off by not owning a vehicle, but using them when they need them. And then the vehicles that get built are then engineered to last longer. It then becomes a play for who owns the fleets or the models within those fleets. And so on.
And then people will say, oh, then I won't have a chance to drive a car. You can still go and buy yourself a race car and race around on the weekends if that's what you want to do, right? but imagine that, I've always been fascinated by it. Okay, we could probably talk for hours about the various things that are available. In terms of, I always ask my guests for 3 kind of top tips that they can share with people. So maybe if people are thinking about how do I digitize my business, what can I do with robotics, what can I do with AI? What are your kind of top tips and tools for them?
I think the thing is don't be afraid to ask. So it's like, there's people out there that will happy to have a chat with you about what it's about, what the things are. And so it's that thing of, seek knowledge, read up on stuff, not necessarily the media, but go to OpenExo, Singularity University, who've got some good information on what's going on. And it's, it's not got a bias on it. The other thing is people are good at something and they've started their businesses and they're good at that. And it's the kind of number 8 I find the number 8 why a mentality can be a bit destructive because people try and then do everything themselves. And a lot of this stuff's got moving so fast, you can't be an expert on everything. So it's that thing, don't be afraid to ask, don't be afraid to get help in. And it's the thing of that it's going to be new ways of working and thinking, but it's that thing of that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with 1 step. So you need to make that step. So it's really, don't be afraid to ask. Get some expert advice. And don't be afraid. Take that step and start the journey. And I'm just looking. I'm assuming you're probably a similar kind of age to myself. It doesn't matter what age you are. You can still always learn about these things and adopt them into your business, right? Absolutely. That's a mistake I actually had when I thought I'd left school, left university. I don't have to learn a thing again now. No, you never stop learning.
Yeah, that's right. It's really interesting. You talked about grow or die earlier. One of our values is actually grow or die, and it's all about, if you're not learning and growing, you literally are dying, and that's the way the world is these days. You're going backwards. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So if somebody wants to get in contact with you, I know you said you work with businesses of all sizes. What's your ideal client look like, and how would they get in contact with you?
Ideal client is someone that's obviously wanting to do something. Doesn't matter if they're large, medium, or small.
Yep.
We see how this technology with the right approach can help people.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, with their productivity or efficiency or competitive advantage or differentiation. That's really, we've got a website which is Quanton, QUANTON.co.nz.
Yep.
Or you can email myself. Our details are on the website.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And we can find you on LinkedIn too, right? Is that Garry with 2 G's?
Two
Garry.
R's.
Sorry, Garry. That was a blonde moment. Yeah. Garry with 2 R's, Green, and then it's also 2 G's, by the way. Yeah. And obviously with Quanton as well in that title. Yeah. So yeah. Well, hey, look, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Yeah. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure too.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the podcast show Better Business, Better Life. My name is Debra Chantry-Taylor. I'm an EOS implementer, family business advisor, business and leadership coach, podcaster, and speaker. However, I'm also a business owner with several current business interests. I'm fortunate to have lived the high life with all the lifestyle, the toys, you name it, and then I've lost it all, not only once, but twice in 2 spectacular train wrecks. I know what it's like to experience the highs and lows. I came across EOS when they launched into New Zealand using my Entrepreneurs Playground and Event Centre in Parnell, Auckland. I love the simplicity of the tools, and their philosophies fitted my personal brand statement perfectly. The brilliance is in the simplicity. I've always been passionate about seeing entrepreneurs lead a life they love, and now I help them live that EOS life. Doing what they love, with people they love, making a huge difference in the world, being compensated appropriately, and with time to pursue other passions. If you want more information or want to get in contact about using EOS in your business, you can visit my website at debra.coach. That's www.debra.coach. Thanks for listening.